In this video, I'm going to show you how to build this sample staff directory in Google Data Studio. To view this sample staff directory, visit bit.ly/sampleds. That will take you to a page that looks like this. So this sample staff directory has a few pages in it. And this first one is just a simple directory view. The second one is very similar, except instead of showing the email address, it says send email, and it allows you to click on that. There's also an example of what charts look like inside of a Data Studio report. Also, what a Google form looks like embedded into a Data Studio report, as well as a video and an animated GIF. On the last page of this sample staff directory is where you can find a link to the sample image that I used for the logo, the formula that I used to create the send email link, and also a Google Sheet that holds some of the demo data that's available. When you download the demo data, you'll click on that link and you'll be prompted to use a template. You'll choose Use Template, and it will make a copy of that sample demo data and put it in your Google Drive. I'm going to rename this My Data. So now I have that in my Google Drive. The next thing you need to do is actually build a blank Data Studio report. So I'm at datastudio.google.com, and I'm going to click on Blank Report. The first thing you're prompted to do is connect to your data. So in this case, I'm going to choose Google Sheets. And I'm going to choose that demo data. And there's the one right there, the one that I just made a copy of. There's only one sheet in it. So I'm just going to click Add. And it's just letting you know you're about to add the data to this report. By default, it creates a new report with a table inside of it. So what I'm going to do right now is recreate the first page of this sample directory, just so you can see what it's about. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete the table that's there. And I want to create a theme, but I don't want to get bogged down in creating all the different colors. So I'm going to extract the image, the theme from an image. And I'm going to use that sample image here. I'm going to come over to sample data. I'm going to click on this link, and I'm going to save that image. I'm just going to throw it on my desktop. And so now over here on my blank report, I can say extract theme from image. It says I can upload it, or I can put it in by URL. I'm just going to go ahead and say upload, desktop. There's my demo. And so now it's generated these themes that I can choose from. If you're looking for a dark theme, you can choose that one. I'm just going to choose this one here. You can see that this first and last one look very similar. But you'll see there's a little bit of difference here in the colors of the text, as well as the highlight colors. This first one's a little bit darker. Third one's a little bit lighter. Maybe I'll pick that one. So I say allow. And so now I have this theme. All right. So now what I need to do is come over and I can put that image onto my page. I can come up and say insert, and I can choose image. And then if you notice the crosshair of my cursor, I can click and drag a spot. And now in that holder, I can put an image file. So I can say select a file. I can upload that image, and there is the image that I put in. So I can resize that image. I can click and hold and drag it and move it around. Just similar to what you would do with other images. If I select an object over here on my side panel, I get some options for style. So I could come in right now, it's a white background. If I wanted it to be transparent, I could make it transparent. I can also come in and give it a border if I wanted it to have a border. And I can also add a shadow if I wanted to have a shadow. There are a few other options: opacity, roundness, the size of the border, and the border style. I'm going to go back here and turn that off. Okay, so now we have the image in there. So we've got that part. Let's get the actual table in there. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say insert, and I'm going to say table. And then you get this that's just kind of floating around. I'm just going to drop it. And notice that this table looks a little bit different than the one that was created for us at the beginning, and that's because it knows we have this theme now, so it's applied the theme to that. I can resize this just by clicking and holding. Now, what shows in the table is based on the data. And so over here on my sidebar, I now look at data, and where it says dimension, anything that's placed there is going to be a column in my table. So I know that I want to have my last name and my first name, and so I'm hovering over it, I'm clicking on it, I can drag it over. I can also just click on add dimension and choose. So if I wanted to add the email address, I can come over here, I can choose email. I'm going to add phone number. And if I want to add extension. So now I have these columns in here, and I can click and hold on the wall and drag it over. So I can resize it if I wanted to. And then you'll see there's this record count and the row number. I usually hide those. So over here on the data where it says metric, I'm just going to click on the little X beside record count, and that last goes away. And then it's kind of hidden a little bit where to get rid of these row numbers. It's actually over on the style panel, and it's under table body. So I'm going to turn off the row numbers. And while you're here, if you did have some text that you thought might need to be wrapped, you could go ahead and wrap text as well. I'll do a little bit more on the style in just a little bit. But so now we have the right number of columns in there. So I'm going to resize these just a little bit. Now, I would like this email address and maybe the phone number and maybe the extension to be centered. So I'm going to come over here to Style, and I'm going to scroll down where it says Dimensions and the columns. Now you'll notice that these are column numbers. So right now this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I want 4, 5, and 6 to be centered, I click on Center for those, and it centers those columns. Now, if I wanted to come back to the data, and let's say I want to add in the department. I need the department to be in there too. So I'm going to click and hold and drag department, put this over here under first name. Now, notice it doesn't automatically resize columns. I have to come back in and I have to resize those manually. Now, if I double click on the cell wall, depends on the settings for my wrap text, whether it will do some automatic things or not. But notice that when I made these centered, I did columns 4, 5, and 6, and it centered 4, 5, and 6, but now we have 7 columns. So if I don't want 4 centered anymore, come over and I change that, and now I want 7. So you kind of have to play around with it a little bit. It's not the most user-friendly, but it's there. So that gets us the basic data that's in our chart. Now, if we want to look and see what this looks like to a user, we come up and we click on the View button. And so this is what it would look like to a user. So right now it's showing all of the data. It's also, if there is not data, it's showing the word null. You can take that away. Also, the height of our table here doesn't go all the way to the bottom, so that might be something we want to adjust. And so when I want to edit it, I come back over and I say edit. So the grid that's here behind, you don't see on the user side, but it's handy to have it there when you're designing. So I'm going to click on this cell, I'm in this table again. I'm going to click on Style this time. And I'm going to come over here and show you that you have a few options. You can change some table colors. You can alternate rows if you wanted to. You can change the font to a limited number of fonts. I'm just going to leave it on Roboto there. You can show the pagination or not. Here's where missing data, where it's showing null. If I just want it to be blank, if there's no extension, I just say show blank, and now the word null goes away. And then you have a few options for whether you want a border around that table. So back here on my sample, you'll see I have a border, and I even have a little bit of a rounded corner. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to say, give me a border. And notice that under the theme, it gives you the option to choose the colors from your theme. And then it will also give you the option here to do some rounded corners. And so now, if I came and I viewed it, it looks a little bit different. It's got that border around it. And now I can scroll through that. One of the other options that we have over here are these filters up here at the top. So if I wanted to see everyone from Harrison Elementary, I can click on the word only, and it will only show me the Harrison Elementary people. I want to see them all back again. I can click on the select all box, and they're all back in. I've also got it showing here so that there's a record count, just so in case I wanted to glance at it and see how many teachers there were at that school. So I've done the same for department and the same for last name. So if I wanted to just find Miss Vargas or Mr. Vargas, I can come in here and say Vargas, only show me Vargas, and then it will show me that. And there's actually 2 Vargases in there. So if I want to clear a filter, I just click the X, click select all, and then they're all back in. So if I want to have these filters in there, I'm going to come back over to my report. And while I'm here, let me just go ahead and name this. So right now it's Untitled Report. I'm going to say Staff Directory. So I just clicked on that, gave it a new name. So I want to add a control to this. So I'm going to click on Add a Control. I'm going to say, give me a drop-down list. And notice I've got this new thing. It says click to add, drag, or draw. I'm just going to drop it by clicking it once. And so I want this to say location. That's what my sample over here says, location. In order to do that, I need to change what this data is. So by default, let me click on this. So by default, that data says base. Now I could change it back over here if I wanted to, but I can also just change it here. So here's base in my data on the sidebar here. If I click on the hover over the ABC at the beginning, it changes to a pencil. And now I can name it make the label something different. So I'm just going to say location here. And so now it says location. And if I come up here and I click on this filter, now you notice it hasn't changed yet. And that's because I selected this table and I changed it there. If I want to change it up here on this filter, I'm using a different set of, even though it's matched to the same data. So I'm going to click on that pencil. I'm going to say location. And so now I have this filter. If I click to view, it's going to show me. By default, it puts in this information because it knew that I was pulling from that base column of data. It reached in and it found the unique list. And by default, it gives you the record count, which you could remove if you wanted to. So you can stylize these as well. You can also resize them by clicking and holding. So as long as I've got it selected, I can choose my style over here. You can enable the search box or not. You can make it a fixed size. You can change some of the features of the text, including header color, background, border color. I'm going to go ahead and choose that same border that I put on my table. And I'm even going to put a little background there. When it comes to the padding, it can get a little bit tricky. You just kind of have to play around with it and see what you like. Usually what I will do is I will get one of my filters looking the way I want it to be. So here it is. It's the way it looks. And then if I want to create filters for other things, like over here on my sample, I have one for location, I have one for department, I have one for last name. What I'll do is come over here and select this, and I'll copy it, and I'll paste it. And then I'll do the same thing for a second one. I can also just say duplicate. Now, right now, they're all tied to the location field. So if I want this second one to be department, I select it. I come over here where it says control field, and I can click on that, and I can just select department instead of location. Now I want this last one to be last name. So where it says location, I've clicked on it, come over to the control field, and let me change that to last name. So now if I look at this, I could choose location. I could choose any one of the departments. I could choose last name, and I could type in the last name if I wanted to. Another thing that's on the sample here is a little bit of text. So where it says use the filters, I'm going to copy that text just so I don't have to type it again. And I'm going to come over here to insert, and I'm going to choose text. And I'm going to draw myself a little text box, and I'm going to paste in that text. And you can stylize that text, just like you stylized everything else. You select that object, And then you have the option to come over here and do some adjusting. So let me make that italicized. Maybe instead of 14 point, I make it 11 point. So I can do some things with that there. Notice that when you're trying to align things, if you move them around based on the settings that you have, over here you have the ability to snap to the grid. Somewhere you have the ability to snap to the grid. So if I view it now I have these options and I have that text there. The filter works on top of that. So the last thing that's over here on this one is this staff count. And if you'll notice, as I adjust this, if I only want to see district, has 15 people in it, that's going to change based on what my filter is showing. That is a chart that's available to put in there. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to edit. And I'm going to add a chart. And the type of chart is called a scorecard. So I'm just going to say a total. I'm going to drop this here. And just like everything else, you can stylize it. You select it. You choose style. And then you can come over here and you can choose different settings, including conditional formatting. So if you were building out something about student data and you wanted to have that turn red if a certain number of students fell into a certain category, you can do that. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to center this information just because I like to. And then I'm going to come over and give it that same border. I give this a little bit of a different background. And then again, you've got some things to play around with padding. I like adding some extra padding here at the top so that it kind of comes down a bit. And then I like having the rounded corners. So there we have that. And you can click and hold and move that around as well. And so now if I look at it over here, if I want to see how many of my users have kindergarten as their department, I can click on only for kindergarten. I can see I have 10. Yes, I can see it right there as well. But maybe I want to see how many kinder and first grade are there. And so it'll give me that record countdown. So this is the first page of this. Now, I have this table set about that height. Maybe I don't want my page to be this long, this canvas here. So I'm going to come over to Layout. I don't have any object selected on the page. That gets me back to where I see Theme and Layout. And I can come over here and I can change the canvas size. So maybe instead of 900, maybe I want 700. And that happened to be a good fit. If I chose 500, notice how the table goes off the canvas. So I'm just going to go back to 700. Here's where the snap to guides are. And then you have some other options as well. So by default, it will display an actual size. So that's what this will look like, is that even if I resize the page, this is always going to stay that size. Let me pop that out a little bit here. So if I come in here and make this page narrower, I'm not going to be able to see my whole table. But if I come in here and I say I want to fit to the width, and I view that, now notice it has completely filled my page, and if I narrow this, it's going to resize with the size of my window. So it's responsive to the size of my window. If you expect that this report is going to be viewed on a phone, then you may want to make the page longer rather than wider, and maybe use a larger font and kind of design that way. Okay, I'm going to come back to edit. I'm going to say actual size. Now you also have the option here to allow the header to be visible or hidden. I'm going to say hidden and show you what that looks like. So now over here, instead of having this Data Studio header appear at the top, it's completely hidden. And then if you want it back, you come over and you hover to get that. Now we only have one page here, but if I wanted to add a second page, I would click on Add a Page. And then I have these two separate pages. Now on my sample, I have pages, but they have different names here. So I'm going to do that as well. So here's my page 1. There are these 3 little more dots. I'm going to rename that, and I'm just going to call it Directory. Now, I can come over here and I could just duplicate that page as well. I'm going to do that. I'm going to duplicate that first one. And so now I have copy of directory. If I want that to be second, I can do that. And I'm going to say rename. I'm going to say directory with clickable email. And what I'm going to do is show you how to change this email link so that it says the word send email and lets you click on it. So in order to do this, I need to create a field in my data set. And so in order to do that, I am going to click on this data source over here in the side. There's a couple of different ways you can get to it. You can come up to it under the resource, manage data sources. I will usually just click on my pencil here. And what I want to do is I want to add a field. And now I can utilize the fields that are here, and I can create my own content based on that. And because I've already figured this out, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click back on my sample. I'm going to copy this formula. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to name my field. So I'm going to call it send email. And in the formula box, I'm just going to paste. And so what this is going to do is going to create a hyperlink. And the concat means that it's going to put together some bits and pieces of information. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a hyperlink that starts with mail to. It's going to grab the information from this email field. And then it's even going to add the subject line that says contact from directory. The second part of the hyperlink formula is the text that's going to show up there. And if you see, I've highlighted this and it'll actually give you some information about that there. So I'm going to click Save. And I'm going to click Done. And now over here in my available fields, in addition to all the other ones that I have, there's this new one that says Send Email. That's the one that we just created. And so instead of the normal email link here, I'm going to click on that. And this time I'm going to choose Send Email. And so now instead of showing the email address, it has Send Email. Now notice up here at the top it actually says send email. I don't want it to say that. I want it to say send email, but I don't want it to look this other way with the camel case. So I'm going to come over here where it says send email in my dimensions. I'm going to click on my pencil, going to say send email. And now it looks the way that I want it to look. And if I came over here and I viewed this, you'll see there's my send email link. And if I were to click on that, it would open up my email program and allow me to send an email. I'm going to go back over here and edit. So right now I have 2 pages, and I have this 3rd page that's just blank right now. Other options that you have that you can do, you can build out different charts, just like we had the scorecard. You can build out additional charts, pie charts, bar charts. You can also bring in filters for those. So if I came over here and I wanted to see the gender breakdown for Tyler Middle School, I can come over here, I can say click OK, and then it would give me that breakdown. The data on the page is all filtered. So in addition, I can come over and I could actually put in embed code. So I'm going to just very quickly show you that. So where I had insert, so all the charts you can put in, the input boxes, all of this other information, but one of those is URL embed. So I can come over, I can select a box, and now I have this over here. So I can come over and I can put my URL there. So here is, I have this embedded area. I'm going to paste in this link to a YouTube video. And now I can drag this around. I can put it where I want to. I can resize it. I can also style it a little bit. So I could come over and maybe I want it to have my school colors, and maybe I want it to have a thicker border so it kind of looks like a little movie theater. So I could do some things with that. So now if I were to view this page, there's my shadow, there's my border, here's my video, and it will play eventually. So you have the ability to do that with videos. In addition, you can come in and drop in, like we already uploaded a video when we uploaded our icon up here. You can do the same thing with the animated GIFs. And when I had the Google form on there, it is putting in that URL to the live Google form, and it will embed it right there in your document, in your report. So let's talk a second about sharing this. So right now, if I were to take this, let me come back around here, and grab this view link, if I were to open up a guest window and paste that in there, I'm not going to be able to see it. I don't have permission to see it. It's all private until it is actually shared. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on the share button. And you've got the little sharp tooth there. It shows you that you have some other options as well. So I'm going to click on share. And I can share it with specific people, or they can view it. I can do the manage access, so I could set it up to a certain group of people. I'm just going to say, for right now, anyone with a link can view. And then I also have the option to prevent any editors from changing the access and adding new people. I also have the option to disable any downloading, printing, or copying. So I'll select those, and I'm going to say save. And so now, if I opened up a guest window, Now anybody can see it. And so I could actually embed that report on a website that would even prevent people from even having to come over to view it inside of Data Studio. So I can do that in a couple of ways. I'm going to click on that shark tooth. I'm going to say Embed Report. And I have to enable the embedding. And now I can copy this code. I could embed it as a URL, or I could copy the embed code itself. I can set the width and height. I can copy that to my clipboard, and I could go paste that into a website editor. Additionally, you can just get the report link, but you can also schedule this report to be emailed. So if you've got a set of data report from student data that you've got coming in automatically, you can have that sent to people based on a time schedule. You can choose which pages, and you can choose time zones and how frequently to send it and all of that good stuff. There are other things on here as well. So you can put in shapes, you can put in lines. I already talked about text. There's the shortcut to embed URL. The control, there were some additional options there for controls. So you could have the input box, some advanced filtering, some check boxes. You can filter by date, which is good. And so these are the basics of your Data Studio report. There are plenty of advanced things that you can get around, including using some different connectors, blending data. But this will get you that basic staff directory that will allow you to play around with this.